Good morning, PT on Ice. Today is September 3rd. I am Mike Eisenhart. I'm here on a holiday Monday with Pop. Thought I would dive into it a little bit this morning. Let's see if we got anybody who's up bright and early, or is most everybody letting the holiday come to them a little bit. So this morning we're going to talk a little bit about the grind. Because now is the time, right, to celebrate the grind a little bit. So it looks like we've got some people who are up and about this morning. Good morning, fellas. Brian and Dan and Adam, I see you logged on there. So I'm going to start the clock and get rolling. So today is really about, just kind of a tip of the cap a little bit to the grinders themselves, right? So we've got Labor Day. Happy Labor Day, everybody, right? And I think sometimes we forget about the origin of this, and really we almost lose something in it. We almost forget to kind of really stop and think about what this holiday is all about. And I often see it kind of become, just the unofficial end of summer, and people sort of like use it as an excuse to get together and have a barbecue. But it doesn't seem like there are that many people who are really celebrating it for what it is. And so I thought maybe it was worth just kind of pointing out exactly what this whole thing is about, right? So let's remember a little bit first that this is a holiday celebrating. Primarily, it was started by organized labor, by the unions, so far as the history goes. But what it really is it's celebrating the idea of the working person, right? So the working man, the working woman, the person who toils every day, the person who gets up and gets out of the house and does their thing, and helps society progress because of their work and because of their effort. And that there should be a celebration of that. That those are the unsung heroes kind of in life. Those are not the people who are making ESPN highlight clips. These are not the people who are on feature stories. These are just average, everyday folks who just kind of grind it out day in and day out. And that they deserve some special recognition. Now, for me, this holiday actually is a pretty special one, because those are the kinds of folks I feel like I work with every day and have been for a very long time. This particular year marks an important one because we are literally 22 days away from our, this is our 20th, our 19th Labor Day, and 22 days away from our anniversary, our 20th year anniversary. And so it's a special day, for me, because it kind of reminds me a lot about that. It's a little even more special for me because, I'm now celebrating my 17th year as a dad. Tomorrow will be the birthday of my oldest. So there's a lot of things that kind of come together for this holiday and really give me time to kind of pause and think. But what I thought I would do today is just kind of take some time to celebrate the people in my life who grind it quietly, because I think there's a lot that we can learn there. And I think, I've been thinking about this more a little bit like over the last couple of weeks. And mostly it's because, I got a tip when I was out in Vegas this year at the Sampler. I was talking about my grandfather, and my grandfather is a 94-year-old guy who pretty much was an entrepreneur in his own right, kind of made his own little innovations on just hard work, right? And the irony of it is that here, 94 years later, he's a guy who has lots of really great memories about work. And so I was talking about him at the Sampler, and Dustin mentioned to me at one point and kind of said, "Hey man, you should record your grandfather, right? Like you should sit down and just capture that." And I had said I wanted to do it, and he sent me some stuff and said, "Just do it," right? So my grandfather was up a couple of weeks ago, and I got to sit down with him and spend about 15 minutes. It actually turned into about 45 minutes. It started with about 15 minutes, and then we got into it and had some fun. And about 45 minutes later, I had heard all of these stories, and so much of it was about work. And that really dawned on me, right? Like I asked him really from the beginning, like, what's your earliest memory? And kind of we took it through there, and he kind of burned through that part really fast. But then he got to work. And he got to tell me about his work and about how much, that meant to him, and about all the people, in his workplace, and all the personalities he had come into contact with. And it just dawned on me exactly how much we define ourselves by our work. And how much of our life is spent really in that grind, and that although we often make that grind a negative, sort of give it a negative connotation, it doesn't have to. It can be an incredibly positive connotation. And so here today I'm sitting in the office at Base Camp, and I'm about to get some work done myself. But I just thought it was a perfect segue into really that pause for all of us. Can we pause for a second and really celebrate the work that we do, the work that the people we interface with do, and can we kind of keep that grind forward? Now, a couple of people I want to make sure that I mention, right? So 1894, Grover Cleveland signs the Labor Day law, whatever, and there had already been like 30 states doing this at the state level. And so to me, that's right off the bat tells us a little something, right? Was that locally things can happen. So Labor Day became a local thing at first, right? It was done in New York City. They had their first kind of big movement, but there are other states. Oregon is mentioned if you look it up a lot. And they kind of pushed the issue nationally, right? Like locally, people were doing the same. We need this celebration. It's important. And it kind of rose up, and eventually, a couple of years later, it was signed into law. I think there's something there for all of us who feel like there's, the toil of a movement, right? Like whether your movement is about movement, we certainly saw that in Free the Oak this summer, or whether your movement is about something bigger, lifestyle, population health, moving the needle on health overall, or whether your movement is something else completely. Like that part doesn't matter. But again, it shows us that at least there's a historical basis for this idea of sort of, think global, act local. Get things done at the local level and celebrate it with others, and that others will begin to kind of glom onto it and things can be done. So that's kind of my first tip of the cap, is to those folks who kind of got this from the local level, and now we know it as a federal holiday and something that we've all sort of grown up with is just kind of a normal part of life. The second thing I wanted to do was a little more local to me. In many ways, I'm the guy out front, and so it's been that way now for the better part of 20 years. And there are people who are along with me who are really the ones grinding every single day. And if you look closely in sort of the pictures, if you were to see some of the pictures behind me, you could see some of that. But it takes a second, I think, and there's value in doing this. And recently, someone kind of posted to me and poked at me and said, "Hey, a tip of the cap to some of the people who do the hard work, sort of the grinders, and that would be like in Free the Oak, it would be like the oxen. We talk about the oxen." But in my life, there's a lot of those people. So I would be remiss to not mention Eric and Nick and Justin and Amy, my partners, who have been doing this for a while with me. They're often doing it quietly. And I think you'll find that in almost all movements, in almost all efforts, that there are people who just quietly grind every single day, and they're the real heroes of this situation. And that they, on a day like today, deserve some tip of the cap. Right, on the APHPT side, you've got Allie and Perry, who quietly for almost the better part of a year have been quietly working with me in the background to make a lot of this stuff go. They're not saying a lot, they're not doing a lot, they're just grinding it out, getting things done. And I think there's really something to that. I think that for most of us, we often feel like we want some like hey, someone recognize how hard we're working in our day to day. Right, most of us kind of that's one of the frustrations in the workplace. We talk a lot about culture, and in many ways, I've heard Alan talk on this podcast a little bit about that, about the idea that in some workplaces, he did one recently about like make it fun, and that it's really hard to make it fun when you feel like you're just swimming upstream every day. But there are certain people who just seem to find a way to do it. Right, they just grind it out, and to me, I look at that and say today is kind of your day. And most of us, if we take a second, we can think about people in our lives, who those people are, and whether or not they today deserve just a little phone call or an email or a text. And I guess that's kind of the call to action. I'm not going to spend too much more time on this today, but I guess that's what I want to leave everyone with. Like, you have time. Like today is a carve out of time. Most of us spend our life wishing we had more time. Like, man, if I only had time, I would do whatever, right? And of course, the people I often work with, if I only had more time, I would exercise, or I would change that healthy habit, or I would do something, give up something that I know isn't great for me and take on something that's good. Like, whatever. But like, all of us have that sensation, that feeling of pressure and time. And like, that's what today is meant to be. Today is a celebration of that grind, but it also gives us the time to do something. And I guess the call to action, I'm going to sort of throw it out there, and you can do it or not do it. But maybe just a text to somebody and just say, hey, I appreciate how hard you work. Like if we would just do that, what would be the ripples of that? What could be the ripples of that? And if we ask them to do the same, like, hey, it took me 30 seconds to think of you and the type of a person you are, and I appreciate you. You grind every day. I see you out there hustling and grinding. Like, today is your day, And even if it's like not a parade for you, and I'm not hosting a barbecue for you, and I don't expect there to be a national monument erected to your effort, I want you to know, at least in my head and my heart, when I think of hard work, I think of you. And so if we would do that and say, hey, and you know what? I hope that you will do the same for someone you think about. What I'm going to tell you is I think those kinds of simple efforts have huge implications on our health. They have huge implications for all of us, because what we know is that if we would take that gratitude idea, and this is a moment, like we have it, it's here, it's ours, you're going to have some time today. You're not working, okay? You could take that moment and you could pass it forward, and so could they. And before you know it, it doesn't take many ripples and many jumps before people realize, yeah, you know what? Thank you for that. That was meaningful that you noticed, because in many ways, that's what we want. We just want to be noticed for the effort. Okay, so we could get into mindset, and we could get into Carol Dweck. And for those who have listened a while, you've heard me talk about Carol Dweck a lot. I have a huge, sort of place in my brain that's dedicated to her work on growth mindset. I just think it's, fantastic. It's just fabulous work. And she's shown in so many domains that if we would just reward effort, right, instead of accomplishments, but if we would just make effort the thing that mattered, that all of us would benefit, that we grow. That we put growth as kind of like the end goal. Instead of the accomplishment, the growth. And I think that Labor Day gives us an opportunity to do that, because that's what it is. It's a formal recognition of the people who work and the people who grind. And I know in our profession, in our field, many of us feel like that's us. Like we're not doing this for the money. I mean, if you're doing this for the money still in 2018, 2019, I mean, like if you're in this part of the world for money, you are sadly mistaken. Right? I mean, like we have to come to that conclusion. You do this because it's meaningful. You do this because it's going to make a difference in someone's life. You do this because there's a unbelievable need. You do this because people's lives are blowing up left and right, and you absolutely think you can make a difference. It's not about money. Now, can you make enough to survive? Sure. Sure. If you do it right, and if you hustle, and if you're willing to work, sure. You put some money to the side and you save. You might have some at the end. Great. But at the end of the day, that was kind of the lesson that I heard from my 94-year-old grandfather. Some people will find it a bit of a shock. My 94-year-old grandfather was a butcher. Yeah, I know. So for all the people who love to poke at my plant-based, dialogue, my meme, eat more plants, like if you like to poke at that, understand that, my 94-year-old grandfather was a butcher. Okay, but what he did was he worked his ass off. I mean, this guy worked from the crack of dawn until, pretty much all day, every day. And you could hear the pride in that in talking to him. I mean, that's what he talked about. He didn't talk about the accomplishments. He didn't talk about the fact that my mom, the oldest in that family, was the first to go to college because he was able to, on the work on his back, he was able to put her through. Like that wasn't what mattered to him. It was the effort itself. And I love that. I love that mentality, right? He didn't talk about the fact that, because for health reasons, they picked up and they moved. Like they moved from Jersey where he was from, and he literally picked up his family and moved to Florida because the doctor said, if you don't do this for your child, she's not going to live as healthy a life. And he picked up and he moved his family and he started a business with his brother. I mean, to me, like that was awesome. To see him at base camp sitting there, a couple of weeks ago with a lot of the families, Allie's parents were there, and we were sort of welcoming Aaron into the mix, and Justin's parents were there. I mean, like that was awesome for me, because what that was not a celebration of the accomplishment. It was a celebration of the hard work. It was like, yeah, you've been grinding for a while. And here are multiple generations. There were 3 generations of my family in that room celebrating other people who are now starting this journey to do more hard work. Do the accomplishments come? Yeah, absolutely they do. Sure, of course they do. But the work is what defines us. The grind is what defines us. And I just feel like that is something that we all should celebrate. We should truly take this day seriously. Like this isn't just the unofficial end of summer. Like you can make it that way if you want. I'm sure the Jersey Shore where I was last week is packed, and there's lots of people trying to squeak in a little more sunshine, get just that little bit more tan or whatever. But I hope really, if you believe at all in this idea of eudaimonic happiness, if you believe at all in this concept of, our work in many ways defines who we are over the course of our life, that if we can give that back to people, get them back to work physically, give them the abilities to do so, and if we can give them the health that they need to do this as long as they can, that they can actually live a really high quality of life. to me, that's kind of, that to me is a calling. And today is a day to celebrate that. And so I hope you will. So with 1 minute and 18 seconds left, I guess that's really it. I just wanted to kind of, take a moment to time out and pause a little bit for us all to sort of look in the mirror and realize that this is our day. This is your day. And if you grind and you work and you're defining yourself by the work that you do, whether it's with, hard hats in the background there, like you can see, or whether it's people who are just, sort of getting up and going and their work is being a parent or, getting a kid on a bus or whatever it is, like that's what you're giving every day. You're giving people the ability to do what defines them, the ability to grind over the course of a lifespan. And I think we all deserve a little bit of recognition for that. So that's it. Call to action today. I try to always think of something to poke you a little bit and push you a little bit, things that would move the needle on health. But I'm going to tell you today, just a simple tip of the cap, one text or a tweet or an email or a phone call. I mean, if you really want to get crazy, call somebody, let them hear your actual voice and just tell them, hey, I appreciate you. Why? Because I see you work as hard as you do. And the fact that you work as hard as you do means that other people are succeeding in life. And I hope you'll take a minute to just think about that and recognize who in your life, works hard and who you want to emulate and who you want to be like. Someday I hope to be sitting with my grandson talking about, my 94 years on this planet. That would be an awesome accomplishment. But until then, I guess I'll just leave it this. It's still Monday. It's a holiday Monday. There is still work to be done. It could be fun work. It could be work. But the bottom line is it's a celebration of work. It's a celebration of the grind. It's only Monday. Make it count.